Have you ever described yourself as not a creative person? Well, then this book might be for you. And if you are the other way and you really love creativity and embrace it as part of your work, then this book is definitely for you. Seth Godin probably needs no introduction. He's an entrepreneur and a marketer. He writes on his blog every single day. And this book is a collection of more than 200 of those posts, all focused around creativity. So each of those 200 odd excerpts, each in themselves include an insight. I've tried to pull together 5 key insights from the book. And again, I'm looking at this through the lens of sports performance and how it can best serve people in those settings. But of course, so many of these insights apply to everyone, regardless of their field. Godin explains this subtitle by shipping is to represent that it doesn't count unless you share your work, unless you ship it. Creativity, because you are trying to add something new into the world and you are trying to solve a problem. And work, because it's not a hobby, and he says it's the work that brings you here. As for the practice itself, that will be the focus of the first insight. We hear a lot in sport about trusting or respecting the process. We hear it from players and from coaches in their interviews. To me, trusting the process is about committing to all those pieces that go into performance preparation, whether it's the training on the field, off the field, in the weight room, nutrition, sleep habits, recovery, everything that goes into influencing performance. But we can also respect the process in our own work. And that's what this book is all about. Not worrying about the outcomes or a specific goal, but it's about committing to that process of creation. Whether it's creating training programs or rehab programs, whether it's about creating nutrition plans for athletes, or whether it's about how we are analysing the data and creating reports. To us, this is our process, and so we need to be committed to the practice of creating that work, regardless of an outcome, but it is done for the betterment of the world. So consider in your own role and your line of work what your practice should look like. Remember, you don't have a specific outcome in mind. You don't have an external boss, as Godin calls it. But you should bear in mind your specific audience. And that brings me to the next insight. Throughout this book, Godin keeps coming back to this question of who is it for? The practice is about creating work for others. It's about contributing to society. But your work is not for everyone in the whole world. You have to have your specific target audience in mind. So keep coming back to who is it for? If you're creating a strength and conditioning program for someone, is that cool new exercise that you have seen on social media or read about in the research? Is that suitable for this audience, for this specific individual athlete? Need to keep that individual in mind and create your work with them at the forefront of it. And similarly, if you're creating some sort of data visualization, who is it for? And Godin refers to this as practical empathy. So use your empathetic skills to understand what the receiver wants and design it with them in mind. So a few times throughout the book, Godin says something along the lines of, we don't ship because we're creative because we ship. And this really stuck with me. Or I've often said, oh, I'm not a creative person. But his argument is it's not something that you're born with. It's not something that you do or don't have. And perhaps we've always thought about the cause and effect of creativity wrong. In fact, if we stick with our practice, then creativity will win out. It's often too easy to find excuses for avoiding your creative work. I don't have time to read, I don't have time to write. This is a really empowering thought, because if we are stuck, we don't need to wait for creativity to come to us, or we don't need to go and try and find the answers. We just consistently come back to our practice, come back to the work, come back to the process, and our creativity will follow. In being creative, we are seeking to create something new, something that hasn't been seen in the world before. And because of that, Godin says that we have to embrace uncertainty. And actually, not only do we need to be prepared to be wrong with what we're creating, but perhaps even seek out being wrong. So one section reads, "The only way to find something new is to be prepared or even eager to be wrong on our way to being right. The practice seeks to make change, but the process demands originality. The practice is consistent, but only in intention, not in execution. Every creator who is engaged in the practice has a long, nearly infinite string of failures. All the ways not to start a novel, not to invent the light bulb, not to transform a relationship. Again and again, creative leaders fail. It is the foundation of our work. We fail, and then we edit, and then we do it again." But something I want to add to that point for sport specifically is knowing that if we're being creative and introducing something new could go wrong, we have to be intentional then about when we pick to be creative. Of course, we don't want to go adding something new into a team warm-up right before a big game because of the chance or even this need to be wrong when trying to be creative. In our settings, we need to be really intentional about how we try and when we try something new. In today's world, criticism is all around us, and often it's not that helpful, particularly if it comes from trolls or anonymous people, or even people who don't know how to provide good feedback. So Godin describes the generous critic and says that these people are priceless. The generous critic has taken the time to regard your work, understand your intent, and then speak up. The generous critic is ready to be enrolled in your journey, is eager to go where you'd like to take them. That means you can learn something, and learning something is part of the process. So not only seek these generous critics for feedback, but strive to be a generous critic in yourself. And whether that is in formal settings like peer review, which we all know can be a mixed bag in terms of feedback, or in a more informal setting through a peer, a colleague, or even a friend. When someone asks for your feedback, strive to understand the intent of the creator and who it's for, and then provide feedback and maybe even criticism that adds to their creative journey. And of course, if you receive generous criticism, be sure to thank them. So those were my 5 book insights from The Practice by Seth Godin. I hope you enjoyed them. I hope you can relate to your own day-to-day roles. And if you did like this video, then please subscribe to my channel for more upcoming book insights, as well as more videos about the latest research, as well as the blogs that I'm posting on my website.